Welcome to the CSN3M Mindset Monday podcast. I'm Andrew Wade with Case Specific Nutrition. On this channel, we focus on the three M's: mindsets, myth busting, and mentoring, all as they pertain to health and nutrition. I wanted to follow up one of my Thoughtful Thursday posts. For those of you out there that do not know, on my personal Instagram, Pittsburgh Guyatician, that's Guya, Pittsburgh Guyatician, I post a Thoughtful Thursday pretty much every Thursday, and it's meant to be a 30 to 60 second video. It's more often 60 seconds because I don't know how to shut up, but it's a 30 to 60 second video sharing a thought of the day, and it varies from something related to food to something related to well-being, to something that's just more in tune with overall perspective. And it's just meant to be a short thing that kind of engages the mind and gets people thinking, as this Mindset Monday podcast does. And a couple months ago, I did a quick one on trying to set the pace of your day. And I felt like it deserved a little bit longer than a minute because it's something that we as a society all struggle with. And to be honest, it's a large reason why our health and wellness is so much worse than other cultures. When we look at if we look at how our health is compared to most other nations, many of the nations that are healthier, whether we measure inflammation, whether we measure heart attack risk, whether we measure happiness, cases of anxiety, depression, you name it, across the board, we always seem to fall very, very far behind, even though we have the most access, the most opportunity, the most variety. In many ways, we should be a very healthy people, but we are not. And one of the main reasons for that is because of the pace we choose to live our lives. Anybody out there listening that's been to Europe knows the difference, where you sit down at a restaurant for dinner in Europe and most people dine for 2 hours, and you have to sit there and the check doesn't come. You have to wait and actually ask for the check. They will not bring it to you because they do not want to rush you, which is completely opposite to our culture, where restaurants try and shuttle people in and out to maximize profits. And you can see that across the board in how we conduct ourselves. Most of us are attached and connected to our job far more than 40 hours a week. We check our emails constantly. We feel constantly busy. We're rushing from point A to point B. Most people feel like they're always behind in some way, shape, or form. And we have massive issues with anxiety and depression. And it's because in our society, there is a pressure and an expectation to go a million miles an hour. There's a pressure and an expectation that you're willing to skip your lunch and you postpone your vacation. There's some false and sick sense of pride in bragging about how long it's been since you took a vacation, or how long it's been since you took a weekend off, or how long it's been since you actually sat and had a lunch, as if that's something that's impressive and makes you somehow more important or more highly respected. And I know I'm somebody that bought into that for a long time. And I'm also in some ways very hypocritical because to this day, I still work much more than the typical person should and would. And I do so in part in ways that I actually enjoy, but I know there is in some ways that deeply rooted connection to those expectations. So this podcast is not meant to criticize those who want to work hard and those who want to have success. Instead, it's meant to help those find actual success and level up their success. And I will tell you personally, I'm at a point in my life where I still work a lot more than most people do, but I'm working less than I ever have. And my stress levels are lower than they've ever been. And I'm probably 5 times as productive as I've ever been. And I am more successful than I've ever been in most measures of success, in my relationships with friends and family and loved ones, in my connections with clients, in my ability and connection with the world, how I impact the world, financially, spiritually, all aspects are thriving. And it's because I'm slowly but surely learning to slow my brain down and reset my pace. Not every day, not all the time. I always used to say that my willingness to go 1,000,000 miles an hour is why I've found success at a young age. And it's also the reason that if I'm not careful, I'll have a heart attack by the time I'm 35. And when my wife and I first met when we were in college, I was always going 1,000,000 miles an hour. I was highly anxious. I was go, go, go. Even when we'd go on dates, I would be watching my watch while we were eating dinner because our next event that we had to get to, I did not want to be late for. And so I would be completely distracted at dinner. I would rush it so that we could go to the next thing and then rush that so we could go to the next thing. I was always living an hour in the future. I was never living in the moment. And as a result, I never got to enjoy anything. I never got to take a breath. And to be honest, I spent quite a few years dealing with heavy anxiety and panic attacks and going off and on some medications to try and help manage it before I realized that I myself could fix that by learning to switch my brain off and on. And so to this day, when I'm trying to work, when I'm trying to be productive, when I'm trying to focus on something, I turn on my type A, hyper-focused self, the self that got me through all my crazy classes in college and allowed me to work crazy schedules, and the part of me that created a business at 22 that grew faster in a year or two than I think even I expected or hoped for. So learning to turn off and turn on, learning to reset your pace is what I call it, is an extremely valuable skill. And it's relevant for all of us for a lot of reasons. But really our happiness and our health is the thing that gets to survive and thrive or suffer as a result of this. In my 1-minute Instagram video, I called out some examples of taking a walk or making tea or eating a salad as examples of things that most of us have said nonchalantly in passing while we're rushing to do something. I just don't have time for that. And what's interesting to think about is when you're out of that moment and you hear yourself say, I don't have time to take a walk, I don't have time to eat a salad or drink or sip on soup, or I don't have time to drink tea. That's kind of a laughable comment, right? Because we realize that none of these things are actually particularly time consuming. But we do also live in a society where 40% of people, at least pre-COVID, hopefully this has changed, but 40% of people didn't wash their hands after using the restroom. And the reason is because when we stand there at the sink, it takes 20 to 30 seconds, which most of us are in such a fast-paced state of mind, we subconsciously don't think we have time for. We're living in such a large to-do list that we cross off simple, small tasks because we think that we don't have time to do them. Or, said differently, we're so overwhelmed by all the things we're trying to force into our day that we start crossing things off to try and make room to breathe. And as a result, we cross off things that don't affect other people. And so we cross off things that only affect ourselves, which is in part why our health suffers. It's why during the workday, many people are so quick to push off or skip their lunch. Or they say, I didn't have time to eat today, or I didn't have time to eat till later. Or they didn't have time to prep food, or they didn't have time to pack food, or they didn't have time to brush their teeth or wash their hands or take their appropriate hygiene routine that they'd prefer. Whatever it is, we tend to sacrifice the things that are for us. And it's because we perceive those things as selfish. And we think that we're doing everybody else a favor if we sacrifice the things that we need for the quote unquote greater good of other people. The problem is the greater good suffers when you suffer. You then are not your best self. You're impatient, you're tired, you're irritable, you're less likely to actually navigate situations and scenarios appropriately. So today is a call out to all of you type A 1,000,000-mile-an-hour brothers and sisters like myself that need to recognize that there are times where resetting our pace and slowing our pace allows ourselves to reset mentally and physically, and then allows us to come at productivity and action from a much, much better place. These things that are meant to interrupt our day are meant to be our stress release. They're meant to be our exhales. They're meant to be the things that allow us to take a step back and then proceed forward with more clarity, as opposed to just relentlessly hacking forward with a machete with no idea where you're actually heading. The making tea, the taking the walk, and the salad are my three favorites. And it's because day in and day out, when I work with overly busy and overly stressed individuals, these are examples of things that a lot of people claim to enjoy doing or like doing, but quote unquote don't have time for. And they are also the same things that once they're done, once they're actually done, there doesn't seem to be a time deficiency, which is to say that we always have time for them. We just cross them off when we are blindly crossing things off out of a state of overwhelm. But instead, if we use these things to reset our pace, if we intentionally use them to interrupt our day, stopping for 10 minutes to take a walk in the middle of the day seems really hard and seems overwhelming. But when you actually take the walk, if you can actually use those 10 minutes to live in the moment for a second, it gives you a chance to exhale, and you will, as a result, go back into your other work or resume your tasks you were doing prior out of a state of panic and instead in a state of purpose, which actually allows you to be more productive. The big flaw in our thinking is that the human psyche convinced itself somewhere along the way, particularly in America, that the longer we do a task, the better we get or the more productive we get, right? That productivity goes up in a straight line. We build momentum. But just like the person running at the end of a marathon tends not to feel better at mile 26 than they did at mile 1, our brain too has that same problem. We fatigue. And when we try and just white knuckle our way through our day with no breaks, no distractions, no interruptions, and no resets of our pace, it becomes infinitely harder to be productive. Our fatigue sets in, our irritability sets in, our focus deteriorates. And as a result, even though we think that because we've not broken our focus, we are somehow superior, that lack of break and focus has set us up to be much, much less productive. Breaks in focus create productivity. They do not destroy productivity. If you were going to run 26 miles and you are not graded by the accumulation of the 26 miles themselves, but instead were graded by how fast you ran each mile, would you run all 26 miles continuously, or would you run each mile separate and give yourself a break? Obviously, you'd give yourself the break. And at the end, if you looked at the 26 miles combined, you would be much, much faster, right? I would be able to run 26 miles at a 6-minute pace each mile with a break, where if I have to run 26 miles continuously, untrained, I might have to run that at a 9-minute pace. I'm obviously going to be more productive in each mile. And we too are going to be more productive in each hour that we give ourselves a break or an interruption. Now, there are things that we need to crank out. There are things that we need to focus in on, but it's all about giving ourselves the interruptions on both sides of those things. Certain tasks might not take an hour. They might take 2 or 3, but trying to connect that task with infinite list of other tasks that leads to no end in sight is a huge oversight and a big gap in our psychological abilities. Instead of momentum gaining and us going up, we fatigue and productivity goes down and crashes. And it eventually gets to a crash point where it's not going down in a linear format, but instead actually crashes. What's interesting, if we take small dips, what we notice is that over the course of a couple hours, our productivity will rise. We take a break and there's a small dip from the break, and then we rise again, and then we take a break, and then we rise again. And at the end of the day, productivity has actually grown. And so we've become more productive, and it's because we've given ourselves the appropriate breaks. We've given ourselves a chance to take the deep breath and the exhale. Utilizing things like meals to actually sit down and enjoy a meal, chew the food, taste the food, enjoy the food, rest the brain, not do emails, not multitask with a conference call, but actually do a singular personal task for ourselves, is to rejuvenate and regenerate. And what's really neat is, in addition to productivity improving, I guarantee you will also notice that other aspects of your day and other aspects of your life also improve. One of the main things from a taking meals perspective is you'll notice that you snack less. And you'll notice that you're more full from your meals and more satisfied from your meals, which means you'll be less hungry. And eventually you'll probably notice that you eat less. And you'll definitely notice that at the end of the day, instead of coming to the end of the day absolutely exhausted and feeling like you can't do anything, you'll have some extra energy and you'll be ready to do something for yourself in the evening. And so what's really kind of cool is part of the intervention that us dietitians do for our clients is we help reset the pace of the day. We help prioritize aspects or important parts of our day so that our day lands and plays better. And our meals are probably one of the most essential things. Most people snack because they're either not eating or because they're eating rapidly, hurriedly, and eating out of convenience, which means they're not actually paying attention to the food. So they're not actually enjoying it. They're not actually being in touch with their hunger and fullness cues from it. And as a result, that hunger and fullness is never actually triggered and utilized properly, which leads us to have something we want. And so a lot of times a snack is actually you wishing lunch was better. And so why not just make lunch better? And a lot of times evening sitting around and lounging is a result of trying to run a marathon, right? It's trying to go 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours continuously with no break. And what do you expect to happen at the end of that? You're going to feel like you can't leave the couch. If throughout the day you've taken a break, had a really good lunch, you've taken a break, made some tea in the afternoon, taken a break, taken a walk, all of a sudden in the evening, you're going to have mental clarity, you're going to have vitality, you're going to have vibrance. You might find yourself looking to do things for yourself, which means instead of your evenings being spent exhausted, all of a sudden they're spent doing things for self-fulfillment. And that means the evenings are more rewarding, which means you sleep better. And if you wake up better rested and feeling like you were able to do things for yourself in the evening, you're definitely going to be more likely to go into your next day feeling much more positive. So instead of living in a world where we feel constantly 15 minutes behind and we wake up and snooze our alarm because we're dreading waking up and we feel like we haven't enough time for ourselves, and then we rush through our day because we feel like that's what is expected of us, and that exhausts us so that in the evening we're worthless again, we can see where that can become a very vicious and negative and detrimental cycle that leads to your habits over time worsening and worsening, your health over time worsening and worsening, and your attitude over time worsening. And so we want to create a prolific cycle, not a vicious cycle. We want to create a cycle that builds life and creates life and allows life to thrive. And that comes from slowing the brain, resetting the pace, even just 2 to 3 times a day. And that's the thing I will challenge you to do this week for yourself. In today's Mindset Monday, let's take this week, let's pick 2 or 3 things that you can do that will give you a good exhale. I know I use my examples as actually making and taking a lunch and truly enjoying the food, chewing the food, and having that as a break in the day. I love the 10 to 15 minute walk where we don't go on our phone. We might listen to music and keep our phone in our pocket, or we might just listen to what's around us, but not doing emails, not texting, not, just taking a little bit of time to stretch the legs, move the body, and relax. And then also, for those of you who enjoy tea, making tea can be a slow process. It's something we make slowly. It's something we drink slowly. By the time you've done any of these things, you will notice that your brain has slowed down a little bit. And as a result of that slowdown, your adrenaline levels, your cortisol are dropping, so now you will be able to feel yourself exhale. Instead of having that tight feeling in your chest where you're constantly go, 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 you can instead, and catching that breath will do more for you than any one tip or trick I could give you. It's probably the single most effective thing I've learned in my 20s. I had someone message me the other day, now that Case Specific has 6 offices and has over 20 people working on the vision and the brand, and has an online wellness course in the OptiLife Academy and a meal prep company and a book and a podcast. And they said, "Do you ever sleep?" And I kind of laughed because, to be honest, I'm doing less for it. Now, I'm still doing a lot. Don't get me wrong. I'm still putting in 70 hours a week probably. But the pace I'm doing those 70 hours is not as rushed and hurried. I'm not as anxious. I'm not constantly looking and wishing I could catch my breath. I'm engaging. And the reason I've done that is because of this one tip, resetting my pace. Over the last few years, I've gotten better and better at it. It's not been easy, but with little interruptions like these that have helped me take a break, take a breath, exhale, I've been able to keep myself in a more positive state of mind, which means I'm a better servant of my clients. I'm a better mentor and teammate to my employees. Hopefully, I'm a better spouse to my wife. And as a result, all things feel more positive, feel less exhausting, feel less burdensome. And I'm able to proceed in a more positive way, which allows everything to proceed in a more positive way. And so productivity has really come from keeping my eye on the ball instead of just hacking away mercilessly forward like I did when I was in my early 20s. Take some time this week and think about first some of the things you do that allow you to exhale. And ideally, it's things that take 10 to 15 minutes, and then implement them, install them into your day, make them a priority, and then notice how they change your psyche, notice how they change your productivity, and notice how they change your day-to-day habits, your interaction with food, your enjoyment, and the things that you might be doing as a side effect of being overwhelmed. I'd like to thank you again for listening to the CSN3M podcast. I really enjoy making these, and it means a lot to have such a great user base and an audience each week. I love when people share these. It means the world to see them getting shared. I've had numerous people that I've never met before reach out and thank me or give me commentary, and I love hearing from people, so don't hesitate. Don't be a stranger. Reach out to us. But once again, thank you all who do listen and share these, because they do reach new people, and the opportunity to help somebody make their day a little bit better, make their week a little bit better, make their life a little bit healthier is why I continue to do these. It's why I exist. It's why I thrive, and it's why I aspire. So thank you for your help. For those of you who haven't already, please subscribe to our channel. Please share it on your favorite social media and tag a friend or loved one that you think needs to hear this. Don't forget to do your part and hashtag spread the health. And for more content, you can always find us on social media at Case Specific Nutrition, and you can check out our website, casespecificnutrition.com. We will be back next week with another CSN3M Mindset Monday.